And that may just be because no one's excited about an existential crisis. Oh yes, I want to go to that music festival to wonder how life is after death, said no one ever, right? I just don't see this record as a happy, popular album for the masses. That being said, I think it's an amazing record. I was not a Gorillaz fan until now, and this album made me a fan. So please watch the rest of the video if you want to know why and want to know more about this record. As you all know, Gorillaz as a band is a very visual project. And to be fair, growing up I was a bit of a purist. I thought music had no room for visuals. In fact, I even thought lyrics is just a layer of noise that defeats the purpose of music, which is to communicate via notes. I don't want to sound like a jazz freak or just say instrumental music is the best, but lyrics for me were just a gimmick because if you had to explain instead of showing, then you defeat the purpose. There's probably some jazz purist meme in the internet that you can insert here, but I actually thought at first that this visual aspect of Gorillaz was just a gimmick. And in a way, Damon and Jamie, the founders of Gorillaz, kind of confirmed that in an interview, saying that the visual was a way to get kids to explore more complex aspects through their songs, so it was sort of an introduction to the band. And it worked. I remember when Clint Eastwood came out, I was just a kid, and all my friends thought the band was cool just because of the visual aspect of it. An effect that I saw repeated when Melancholy Hill came out for newer generations. They thought the cartoons looked cool, and the music was also not bad, so the band instantly became famous because of its visuals. Which as a kid was even weirder to me, like, shouldn't we be talking about the music instead? Why do people that don't even care about music are talking about this band? And why doesn't anyone ever told me that Gorillaz was their favorite band ever? That was just weird. Are people just listening to this because of the visuals? Or are they really paying attention? This record, The Mountain, even comes packaged with an animated video all drawn by hand, which looks lovely. It's very reminiscent of Disney. I mean, they are the kings of animation. But we can also argue that Disney movies are also very superficial. So is this record by Gorillaz the same? Is it superficial? Well, at first listen it may seem like it. The record right off the bat presents you with some Eastern traditional music to make it sound exotic and interesting, but if you listen to the melodies, you probably already heard them somewhere. They sound a bit superficial indeed and cliché at times. And as expected, all the vocal digital layers that are added sometimes feel sluggish too, which feels a bit bland at times. So you may find yourself thinking that, yeah, this record is just pretentious hype. But after listening to it a lot, you realize it actually has a lot of depth. Just like life, it is a short and sweet journey that will leave you pondering how fragile and how granted we take this experience. Lyrically, the record takes you through a sort of existential retreat, making you think about complex topics such as life, death, the current times we live in, and how modern society and current technology takes your attention away from the important things in life. In a way, it follows the previous record, Cracker Island theme, but in a more mature and existential way. But this EP is not just one of those crazy white people trip to India. Sadly, both Damon and Jamie's father passed away during the trip in India, and this led to the decision of making this record and having this concept for the album. And you can hear all the sadness and despair in the performance of amazing tracks such as The Sad God, which is my favorite, or tracks like Orange County or The Empty Dream Machine. But life and death are complicated, and the journey can take you to several places. In fact, it can even take you to some wild ones. One of the most popular tracks, the Manifesto, which for me is my least favorite, is a track where they speak Spanish, and I was like, what the fuck? They don't speak Spanish around that part of the globe. So it completely ruined the immersion for me just because of this detail. It also feels like a super commercial track made to cater the likes of people who think Bad Bunny is the best thing of the decade. You can tell this was made to be a radio hit and be marketable. Even though the lyrics are spot on this track, I think conceptually this completely misses the mark. The manifesto by itself is one of the reasons I can't give this album a 10 out of 10. But there are some other reasons as well. Even though the record feels cohesive and hits like a life lesson, it does get lost in its way at times and gets a bit confusing. And you hear it pretty early in the record too, like in the second track, The Moon Cave, you can already hear that you'll go through different places. And this becomes even more certain when you hear the bass of the track called The Happy Dictator, which sounds like you're almost at a club. Or the track called Delirium, which starts off almost the same way in the sense that it feels like you're in a club and then converts into a total disco track, even though it has the amazing vocal work of Marky Smith and it's a banger track in my opinion. Even a track like Casablanca, which was received as one of the most mid tracks of the album, feels a bit out of place since it has no Eastern music reference at all. That being said, that is also one of my favorite tracks. And I also have to mention Damascus, a track that feels very pushed in the sense that it makes a lot of effort to sound exotic, but the lyrics overall just sound weak and whack. And then The Sweet Prince, which is just too simple of a song for this record and its theme. That being said, I do like the heartfelt performances and the lyric explorations of tracks such as The Shadowy Light, The Plastic Guru, and The God of Flying. In conclusion, while it may be less commercial than Demon Days or Plastic Beach, the way Gorillaz navigate through loss and grief in this record is just simply beautiful. To me, to this day, this is their best and more mature record. It has a lot of great performances and a lot of good features from people that have worked with Gorillaz in the past, which also fits the team very well. They also invited top-tier musicians to do Indian traditional music and some Eastern music as well, and you can even almost hear different countries being represented in different tracks, which I felt was great. I think it helped a lot to paint a very beautiful sonic picture that is the mountain. Even without caring about the visual part or not looking at the video, the listening experience makes you imagine the journey very well, and it adds a layer of texture that complements the hearing part very nicely. I would say this is not a very easy record to listen to, and I don't mean to sound pretentious again or jazzy prick way, but I do think it is a record that you should be listening with your full attention. Otherwise, you will completely miss the beauty out of it. It's not a record for you to listen while you're doing other stuff. That's what I mean. The beauty of this record comes from introspection and contemplation, just like loss and grief. And listening to this record almost feels like a spiritual experience, a healing process of sorts, if you may. I would say instrumentally it's a very interesting record. As always, it's a very well produced and mixed album. And again, it has an amazing journey, deeper than other journey from other Gorillaz records in my opinion. And for all those reasons, The Mountain grabbed my attention as soon as I heard about it. And after this experience, I feel like me and Gorillaz are sort of friends in a way. Like we've been through this impactful event together, and even though we might disagree with some things, it just brought us together. So that made me a fan. We shared a moment, a hard one, not just any moment, so now we're mates for life. And there aren't many records I can say this about. So they totally won me over with this record, and it might be album of the year. I think for some people this is also going to become one of their top life records, those that just hit you and impact your life in a special way. And yeah, that's very, very special. As an artist, I don't think it gets better than this, really. So thank you, Gorillaz, for sharing your work with the world, especially in a difficult moment like this. I think this album deserves a place in everyone's life, and even though it's not a happy, comfortable subject that will make people eager to listen to it, I advise you to give it a chance and listen to it more than once, because it's totally worth it. It may be recency bias or just a surprise factor for me because I wasn't really a Gorillaz fan, but I would rate this a 9 out of 10. And if you're still here watching the video, thank you, you are the true OG.